What is up, YouTube? JJEDC here, back at you with another video. We're back with a little bit different of a crossing blades. This is a crossing blades of budget to intermediate knives, trying to keep it around the under $50 price point. So $30 to $50 price point. Let's say you're out and about. You went to Walmart, Home Depot, and you're like, oh man, I want to get a knife, and you decide to pick up something like this, and you realize, okay, this is great, but maybe the blade breaks on you, maybe it bends, maybe the frame breaks apart, maybe something just doesn't last on it, or maybe it's good for a little while, but you realize, you're like, you know what, it's time to upgrade. Where do I go from something like this, basically? Well, obviously, you could tell somebody, oh yeah, there's other options. There's these slip joint options, or there's these TRM options, and there's you know there's Spider Co's and all this other stuff. But the thing is, though, is that a lot of people don't always have that kind of money, and a lot of people can, they can scrounge together 30, 40, $50 basically, and be okay. And right now I have four knives in front of me. All four knives are D2 steel. And the reason why I accidentally said three before is technically this one actually falls a little bit above the $50 price point. I will get into that why. But I still wanted to include it because this was like the only version that they had in stock. So I went with this one because it's what they had in stock, but I will get into that in a minute. So for you beginner, a little bit more beginner knife enthusiasts to intermediate knife enthusiasts, you may recognize some of these, you may not. You may recognize them from other videos. You may not recognize them. For people that have been around for a while, this video may not be for you. It might be kind of boring. You may want to skip this video if you want, or if you're like, you know what, he had some good points, but there's a couple things he forgot. I'm going to put them down in the comment section to maybe help out somebody else. Because in my opinion, not everyone has a older brother or maybe even an older sister, or a person in their life who has gone through stuff before, who could be there for them to show them, like, hey, if you're looking at this, why don't you check this out, or whatever. Now, my opinion, and this is my opinion, so really fast, there's a difference between facts and opinions. I know everyone thinks they understand that, but if I don't like something, I'm not pointing at these knives, I'm just saying, if I don't like something, that's an opinion, not a fact. And if I don't like something, it doesn't mean that you will not like it, okay? So I am going, when I talk about certain things, if I talk about something that could be bad, I'm not trying to have my opinion in what I think could be bad about the product or what it is, okay? For example, my opinion is D2 steel, which all these have D2 steel, is a great budget steel. It's a tool steel that has fairly decent edge retention, and it is a fact that these steels are not technically a stainless steel. They are somewhat stain resistant, but they're not a stainless steel. So it's not a knock against them, it's just a fact. Okay. Also a fact is that D2 can be a little bit harder to sharpen, but you get a little bit more edge retention, you get a little more durability out of it versus, something along the lines of like a Gerber. I'm not talking about compared to like S30V or other super steels and LMAX and 3V and all this other stuff. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about you're in the budget world. You don't know where to go. This is crossing blades for the budget people, okay? Now, my opinion is that these are four of some of the best knives in these $30, more $35 to technically $50 price point. And I will get into this in a second. So what do we have here? Well, we have a QSP Penguin. This is a what you call like a sheep's foot or a some people kind of call it a Warncliffe, but this is a liner lock type knife. You got micarta scales on it. So scales will sit on top of these liners. So there are like a steel liner. Micarta is like a resin, which is like a plastic kind of glue kind of thing. A resin bonded, basically a resin bonded, whatever they use for it. You can use linen, you can use jeans, you can use whatever it is. So, but micarta, I believe I heard somewhere that micarta is an actual brand, but don't quote me on that. I could be right, I could be wrong, but we're not going to get into that. So, this is a kind of like a saber grind where you have a thicker stock up top and then it becomes skinnier behind the edge. It comes with a deep carry pocket clip. Now the deep carry pocket clip is technically reversible, okay? So that is something to consider. If you are a left-handed person, that's something to consider. A lot of knives, a lot of times, aren't always for left-handed people, but as you can see, with a liner lock, you could still open it okay. You could still push it to the side with your left hand and push it down fairly reasonable, okay? So that's the first knife on our list. That's my least expensive option. These are around 36 or 37. Around, I think it was closer to $40. I can't remember all the exact prices off the top of my head. We have the Ontario Rat Model 2. Now they call it a rat because, I don't know if you could see it, there's a Randall Adventure Training. That's why they call it a rat, for Randall Adventure Training. Randall's is a huge name in the knife world. You could find him with Essie. You could find him obviously with the Ontario stuff. I should also mention QSP is made by QSP in China. Ontario this is a made in Taiwan knife, so it's made in Taiwan. I don't know who makes the actual knife. I don't know if it's an outsourced by an OEM, because like QSP is an OEM for obviously themselves and for other Chinese made knives. I'm not 100% sure who makes the Ontario, but this one is made in Taiwan. Obviously it's got this is more of a drop point, and what it is that the point drops below the spine. If it was straight across, it would be a clip point, but because it actually drops, kind of has a drop down. I know people know this. I'm trying to help out, like I said, the people who are intermediate. Once again, we have a liner lock. Now, this is a non-deep carry pocket clip, which, in my opinion, I feel like this has some benefits to it. Some people think, oh, they just automatically steer away from non-deep carry pocket clips. But I think the non-deep carry actually has some benefits to it. What's also cool is not only can you have this knife tip up, where the tip of the knife blade is up, so you can have this here and have the tip up, you can also carry it tip down, where you can have the clip on this side, and is reversible. So for left-handed people, they can also do a tip up or tip down configuration, okay? So this is the Rat Ontario. And these two knives are relatively the same size, roughly around a 3-inch blade. Same thing with the the knife down here, which I'll get to in a second. This one is a little bit bigger, so for my bigger handed friends out there, this is the CJRB. Oh my goodness. I completely forgot the name of this knife. Hold on. This is the CJRB. It's from CJRB Cutlery. See? CJRB. I completely forgot the name of this knife. I apologize. This is actually one of the first CJRBs that I've held. And it has completely blown me away with the quality and the fit and finish and how it feels in the hand. I wish I knew about this company a little bit sooner when I was getting into knives. I know they're a subsidiary of Artisan Cutlery. That's why they're called CJRB Cutlery. Also D2 steel. This one has ball bearings in it. So these two knives had the washers. This one has actually ball bearings in it. So you get that, if I can get it on camera, it's a little tough, but you get that really, they call it guillotine or fast close shut action. I kind of screwed up my thumb earlier, so it hurts a little bit, but that's a different story. This one also has a reversible pocket clip, as you can see. This is a deep carry pocket clip. And this is also a drop point style. Most knives in this price point are roughly a drop point style. That's what a lot of people do. Now the last one over here is a Civivi Elementum. A lot of people love this knife, and a lot of people recommend this knife to a lot of newer people, because typically they start around the $50 price point. They go up from there. Obviously, like I said, this one was a little more expensive because it has ebony wood scales on it, which this was the only version that they had, or they had this ghastly orange, really god-awful looking orange color. I'm sorry, Civivi, I don't mean to bash on you, but I did not like the orange color that was available. What's cool with this one is not only is it a drop point, right, but this is actually a hollow grind. So I don't know if I can really catch this on camera very well, but I don't know if you could see it. A hollow grind basically is like there's a swoop. There's like a swoop to this right here. So it doesn't just, so like if you look at this knife or at the CJRB, right, it just goes straight back. It just goes from basically from what they call the behind the edge. So the edge of the knife, it just goes straight back at an angle, very straightforward. Whereas the Civivi has an actual concaveness, slight concave to it, which actually really helps with slicing and cutting ability, and it can make this knife very, very, very sharp. Now, this one also runs on ball bearings, so that's why it's very fast. And if you also notice, this one does not have a reversible clip option, okay? So even though the deployment option is also different because it's a flipper, these are all thumb studs. This is a flipper. I just wanted to show a little bit difference as well. But having a flipper, I hit it with my finger. Righties and lefties sometimes have an easier time switching between knives with flippers than thumb studs. It depends, because sometimes with certain knives, like if you look at the QSP, this cutout right here is greater than this cutout right here, and that's because when you have this cutout here, it's so you can access the lock bar, okay? So sometimes when people have the thumb studs, they don't always like that because of when they want to access the lock bar. Now this one, it is very, very subtle, but the lock bar does stick out with this jimping. So there you go. So I have a Sharpie here for comparison because everyone has a Sharpie or has seen a Sharpie or held a Sharpie, so they roughly know the size of the Sharpie. Now, I'm going to go through crossing blades style of good, bads, stuff like that, why you would want to choose one over the other, what makes you would want to choose one thing over the other. But we're going to start, obviously, with the QSP, and then we're going to go from there. So I'm going to move these knives off to the side. We're going to start with the QSP. So, as you can see, it's got roughly around a 3-inch blade, give or take around a 4-inch handle. Feels actually really nice in the hand. It's very not too ergonomic in the aspect of like it forces your hand into to a hold. You can actually get a good grip on it. It's got a nice sharpening choil here, so it's not too aggressive. So some knives, when the blade, let's see if I can find one, when the blade goes all the way back, yeah, like this, like see, there's no sharpening choil here, which is that spot between where the blade ends and where the sharpened edge ends and where the rest of the blade is, which if you're sharpening, then you're just going to start digging into that. So with the QSP, they have a sharpening choil so you don't nick up the rest of the blade, basically. You have dual thumb studs. You have some nice jimping. The deep carry pocket clip on this is actually nice because it is not only deep carry, but it's low profile. And what I mean by that is like it's not so aggressive coming off the knife. What's nice about the QSP is that you can angle that tip down. So if you really want to get a tip and cut something, you can really get the tip down and cut nicely because you're going to be right on that tip, which also could break the tip if you're not careful with what you're cutting through. But if you're a person that's like, I need to cut a lot of boxes or I need to cut a lot of things like this, that might be a benefit for you. The QSP quality, I will say, I'm not going to say it's amazing, because the first QSP Penguin I had, I actually didn't like it at all. It felt very gritty, felt very just didn't feel very good. But this actually has a really good feel to it. I'm actually very impressed with this QSP. Everyone talks about how the Penguins are amazing, and I've always been like, they're okay. But actually, having this one, it feels really good in my hands. So if you get a QSP Penguin and you don't care for it at first, maybe return it and try a different one. Maybe try a different type of handle material. Maybe that's all the difference. This is a black micarta, where the other one I had was a jean micarta, and the jean micarta felt really rough, and this has a little more of a smoother feel to it, so maybe that's the difference right there. Maybe it has a little more of a elegant edges kind of a thing. Sorry about that. Even though the deep carry clip is not okay, back up. Let's get back to the clip. So the clip is a deep carry clip, like I talked about, right? Now, with the deep carry clip, something that I've noticed is that you could see it here a lot easier. Is see how the screws are bulging out? Well, they bulge out there as well. Now, when you're putting it on your pants, right, and you're putting it in the pocket, obviously, you're going to catch on these screws a little bit, but it's not that bad. These are actually fairly well rounded, so it's really not that bad. The fit in the pocket, you really get just pretty much all clip. No, sometimes with even deep carries, you could have a little bit sticking out like that, but this is pretty much all clip. The reason why that is the clip actually comes out of the back. It comes out right there and it goes down, and as you can see, when you reverse it, you actually slide it in there, which allows the clip to be a pretty low profile clip like we talked about before. QSP, like I said, is made in China. Most of these knives are made in China, except for the Rat, which is made in Taiwan. This is a really great knife. Um, this is probably the most interesting one because, like I said, it's got the Warncliffe with the tip, which is actually really cool, and it feels pretty great in the hand. I really do love how it feels in the hand. The clip isn't too much of a hot point, which is nice. Okay, let's move on. So I'm going to try to be kind of fast with these knives, but I want to be informative as well. So we got the Rat Model 2. Now there is a Rat Model 1, and it is obviously just bigger. It's bigger this way, it's bigger this way, and the blade is bigger. This is roughly around a 3-inch blade. The other one's like a 3.6-inch blade, and obviously you're getting a bigger handle. Something I don't love about the Rat is how the handle is sometimes, is it kind of forces your finger to want to be right here. Like if, I mean, you could initially come up here and like pinch it right there, but then you have obviously the blade to think about right here. But you know, it kind of wants to force your hand to be right in this area, and when it does that, it kind of, this is weird ergonomics to me. So the other one was very neutral ergonomics, and that's why, like, when you hear neutral ergonomics, it's not always a bad thing, because when you got something that isn't neutral ergonomics like the Rat, it kind of puts, like I said, it wants your hand to be in a certain area where, you know, if you're trying to do other hands, you kind of have to think about what you're doing and then do those certain things, like if you want to cut a certain way or whatever. Um, that being said, it doesn't feel bad in the hand. It just kind of forces your hand to fit a certain way. Um, the tip, still easy to get to. Like you could still easily get on the edge, but if you really want to get that tip, you gotta obviously put your hand up more. Um, the clip, you don't feel the clip at all in your hand. Like you really don't. Like when it's in your hand, you don't feel it at all. I know some people don't like non-deep carry pocket clips, but in my opinion, the screws, see how the screws are out here? You don't have to worry about the screws hitting your pants at all or catching on your pants. And honestly, when it's in your pocket, that's all that really is there. And in my opinion, when you're in a pinch and you need to get into your pocket, you have something there to kind of help you pull it out and then pull it out the rest of the way and then deploy it, obviously. With the other knife, you know, you have to do a little bit more work for it. It's obviously got two thumb studs, which I forgot to mention. The thumb studs on the QSP are a little bit sharper feeling. I noticed that they do feel a little bit sharper, so that might be, you know, a little bit extra grip if you're wearing a glove. But at the same time, if you're, you know, you're like, oh, I want to fidget with my knife all day, you're gonna probably feel that after a little while. Where the Rat, actually, the thumb studs are very nice and they're rounded. You could see that they're actually nice and rounded. Even um, the grippy areas are rounded as well. This also runs on the phosphor bronze, so it's a nice action. You got a pretty good lockup, which is nice. Um, these are plastic scales, so it's not as nice as a micarta, but they do make other colors. There's so many colors, and I do believe that there are like carbon fiber options as well. I don't recall if I've seen a micarta option, but there are carbon fiber options. Now, being that these are kind of like a plastic handle, they still have a good grip on them. It's because if you see this pattern, it's kind of almost like a waffle kind of grip, and it's got a good feel to it. So it's got a good feel. It doesn't feel like it's going to slip out of the hand. Okay. Um, the blade is a full flat grind. So it's basically a grind that's flat from basically right here at the spine all the way down, which is nice. These tend to be a little bit slicier. The full flat grind has a tendency to be a little bit slicier. Something like the saber type grind has a tendency to be a little bit stronger, but they could still be just as slicey as long as they're sharpened right. But these knives, once you get these things sharpened properly, and I mean they're sharp, very sharp out of the box. I mean, let's see. I don't know if I can get it. I mean, it's just shaving. It's shaving my hair, no problem. Um, and that's factory edge still on it. These knives are sharp and they're slicey and they just cut through a lot of things with very much ease. I will note that the spine is kind of sharp here. It could be that a burr, it could be that it'll go away a little bit over time. So that is something that I have noticed. As far as QSC, I've owned a Rat 2 and a Rat 1 before, and then I stupidly sold them, and I regretted it. And the quality, they still feel exactly the same. I will note that if you stick your hand in here, you can kind of feel the blade a little bit, which isn't necessarily amazing, but it's, I mean, how often are you going to stick your finger right in there? I should have noted that you obviously don't feel it with the QSP, but that's what it is what it is. Moving on. The CJRB, which to me was a surprise because, like I said, I never really had a CJRB before. And I actually really fell in love with this knife pretty much. I mean, even though this is kind of a more unique shape where it wants to fit your hand in a certain way, because it's a bigger knife, I forgot the exact length. I believe this is closer to a 3.5-inch blade. I had a ruler here somewhere. Yes, I do. I can actually get you the dimensions in about 2 seconds. Yeah, we're not quite at 3.5 inches, kind of around 3.5 inches, right near 3.5 inches, but it's closer to 3.5 inch blade. But because of that, the handle's able to be a little bit longer, and when it fits in your hand, especially if you have bigger hands, it just fits nice. You could choke up a little bit here because the way that they have their choil is it actually moves into the handle grip very nicely, so your finger can actually fit right in there, and you can do a little more precision cuts. Or if you're feather sticking or something, you can get in there. There's no jimping on the spine, which some people think is a benefit, and other people don't like that. What is jimping? If I should have probably talked about that before. I'm just going to bring out the QSP. This is jimping right here. It allows your thumb to kind of grip a little bit, or if you use your finger or whatever. Obviously the Rat has a different type of jimping. It's more of like a ramp for their jimping, so it holds your thumb into place, so when you're cutting. The CJRB has no jimping, which I've seen a love and hate for jimping. Some companies believe it actually weakens the knife because you have to cut slots into it in order to get the jimping. Some companies, what they'll do is they'll put the jimping in before they heat treat the blade. So it's kind of a personal preference. I don't really find the jimping to benefit me in any way or hinder me in any way. So these are a G10 scale, so you're getting a little bit better quality in scale because you're getting a little bit next step up price point. These are more like closer to the $50 price point. You're getting a deep carry pocket clip and is not really low profile, but if you notice, all the screws are actually recessed. So when it fits in your pocket, you have nothing here that's going to hold you up. Now, even though this is a deep carry pocket, you could see a little bit will stick up the top there, which honestly is not a big deal. I said before, this runs on bearings, ball bearings. So basically there's these little, sometimes they're different colors, but most of the times they're a little brass washer and they have little bearings in it. And it allows the knife to run very smoothly. Benefits are it feels smooth, it feels fast, it comes out a lot faster. When you disengage it, goes down really nicely. Um, Disadvantage of that is they gunk up sometimes, so you may have to learn how to clean it and maintain your knives. That's a big thing with any knife. You really want to learn how to clean it and maintain them. The thumb studs feel great on this knife. The action feels good. The ergonomics, the handle feels good. The handle, the clip, because it is such a big clip, it does create a little bit of a hot spot. I can feel it in my hand, but because the handle's so much bigger, the hot spot actually is lower in my hand. It's not like right in the center. It's kind of like you feel it more down here, which is fine because if I'm holding it really firm up here with my hand, um, I don't have to have it as firm down here. And it doesn't really hurt when I'm using it. It's you can feel it, but it doesn't hurt. Okay. This is a larger knife, so you will have to look at your local knife laws and find out if you're allowed to carry something, obviously, this size. Most of these knives are around 3 inches. I was trying to keep everything around 3 inches because a lot of knife laws, they allow you a up to 3 inch knife blade, basically. Some won't. It just all depends on your area, city, or state. Um, but this is actually a really nice knife. It feels great in the hand. It's got a nice drop point. It is not a full flat ground. There actually is a saber there. I don't know if you can see it. You can kind of see that line. So this is a saber, but it's got a pretty good thickness too in the blade stock. I mean, that is something to note with certain knives. See how skinny this blade stock is? Depending on what you're doing with the knife, you may want a skinnier blade stock because if you want to be really slicey, a skinnier blade stock can sometimes give you a slicier blade than a thicker one. But a thicker blade stock will be a little more robust and maybe hold up a little bit more over time. That is something to consider. Okay. Moving on. Now we got the I would call almost the king of the budget knife world, Civivi. Now Civivi is a Chinese made knife. Oh yeah, the CJRB is also Chinese. Um, Civivi is made by the company We Company, and that's their parent company. And I call them kind of like the king of the budget world because a lot of people, when they think of a budget knife in the knife world, they will think of a Civivi a lot of times. Um, and why is that? Well, they run on ball bearings. They feel good in the hand. They work very well. They know what they're doing. Even though it's made in China, it's not like it's so. How do I put this? There's a difference between an American company making a knife in China or a Chinese company making a knife in China. I know that sounds weird, but it there is a difference. So this is a Chinese company making a Chinese knife. It's you know what I mean? So like um how do I put it? Let's see. I got it. I had a great example. Um Here we go. So this is an SOG or a SOG. That was a terrible deployment. Um, SOG is an American-made company who outsources some of their knives, like this one in my hand, to China. So somebody in China will make this knife based off of SOG or SOG, whatever you want to call it, specs. And in sometimes a knife like this could actually be worse in quality and worse off than something like the Civivi, where it's a Chinese company. Now, this one's actually a really good knife. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that that does happen sometimes where you have a company who um, you kind of just give your knife spec to, and they say, "Oh, hey, can you make it to this?" And they say, "Yeah, sure, we'll make it." Whereas Civivi, who's owned by We, and they call We Civivi, um, they take pride and ownership in their knives and what they do. Now, the Civivis, especially the Elementum, come in a lot of different styles, and they range in price. Typically, they start around the higher 40s, low 50s, and they go up from there. This one is, like I said, a little more expensive because it has ebony wood. It's got the D2 blade steel. It's got a flipper tab on it, which, my opinion, and this is my opinion, I'm not always the biggest fan of flipper tabs on knives. I'm not always the biggest fan. They are fun. They're fun to deploy, and they're cool. But if you just miss it, just that one little bit, I'm trying to, like, if you're just like, oh, I didn't, now you got to push it out with your thumb anyways. So sometimes I like the thumb sets a little better. Plus, if you're in a public situation and somebody's like, oh, I need to cut something, you flip that out. People have this weird persona in their head that you have like a switchblade, and it's like, no, I don't have a switchblade. But if you come out and you're like, oh yeah, let me, people don't find that as intimidating when you slow roll something out versus if you just like, oh yeah, and then even still, like, if I go into public, I mean, if I go anywhere that's not my work, like if I go out to dinner or if I'm going to a friend's house or something that they're not really used to knives, I will bring something like a slip joint because I have to sit there, I have to open it up, and then I do what I need to do. And then when I close it, I have to use two hands and I have to close it. So that's why something like a slip joint can be very handy and useful. That's why something like a flipper tab isn't always the most beneficial. The other thing I will note about this, I cut myself on the other knife. The other thing I will note about this knife is the deep carry pocket clip. Now, it is very deep carry, but I noticed that it is not recessed, and for some reason Civivi has and we too, Civivi and we, they have a knack for not recessing the pocket clip into the scale, and it is what it is. But when you're putting it in and out of your pocket, that can make a difference. So it can catch up on there. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It does sit in the pocket fairly deep, okay, which is good. I will say, because it is such a robust pocket clip, that holding it in your hand, because to me this handle feels a little bit smaller than some of the other handles, but because it is such a robust pocket clip, when I'm holding it in my hand, I can actually really feel that pocket clip, which, it's not terrible, but I can feel it. You can choke up on this a little bit. You put your finger right in there, so you get a little more grip out of it. The blade stock is actually very thin, which is nice, and you have that hollow grind, so it actually thins out the blade even more, allowing that the thickness behind the edge to be very thin, so it just slice and slice and slice. Very great. Now, as you could see, all these knives have their benefits, and all of them have their limitations, and all of them have a roughly different price point. Some may have a legal limitation as far as where you live. You may not be able to carry close to a 3.5 or over 3-inch blade in general. That's why also, because like I live in Massachusetts, and where I live in Western Massachusetts, I can carry pretty much almost anything as far as a pocket knife, as long as it's not full auto. Assisted, I think, is okay even, but when I go into my Boston, my country capital, my state capital, country capital, I have to carry a slip joint that is under 3 inches long. So this blade is actually under 3 inches, and it's a slip joint. So I have this knife actually comes in handy for multiple things. So if I go into Boston, if I go to a friend's house or a dinner party or something like that. So that is something that you should also consider looking up your local life laws. Um, if you're using these at home, if you're using these at work, then it may not be as big of a deal because nobody really says anything. I hope this video has helped somebody to decide maybe a little bit better of looking into a more intermediate step up. And these are 4 intermediate knives that I think are a great price for a great product. Even if you're just like, man, I kind of want to pick up something, even if maybe you are a knife guy and your main knife is something that you know, maybe your main knife is a slip joint and you're like, man, I really just want to pick up something like this for every day, just out and about, blah, 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 blah. Maybe this has helped you as well. Kind of deciding like, well, why should I get the rat over the penguin? Or maybe why should I get the CJRB over the Civivi or whatever it may be. Anyways, guys, stay safe, stay healthy. I hope this has helped you. Like, subscribe, let me know down below if this has helped you. And if you have any further questions, let me know. Like I said, I didn't cover everything in the video because I want to just give you, you know, a general overview of why you would want to buy one knife over another knife. Okay? Take care, guys.